I just put 12 of my best students on stage at the MidTerm Rental Summit in San Diego literally a month ago. And 8 of them are doing over $1 million in revenue in literally less than a year. But what shocked me most wasn't about the money. It was discovering something about this industry that changes literally everything. I want to talk about what I consider the business builder revolution, or in my case, I actually call it the modern investor era. What I actually mean by that is so many people are getting involved in real estate today at 6 or 7% interest after putting 20% down, and they just can't cash flow from a long-term rental anymore. So you have these super smart, savvy investors like myself and probably you that are watching this video right now. Kudos to you. Friggin' awesome. A modern investor is actually looking at creating a business that's actually attached to the tangible real estate. So think about this. You have a business on one side that you're actually creating and operating on a regular basis. And on the other side, you have a property. It's tangible, right? So you can knock on it, you can throw rocks at it, whatever you want to do with the property. I wouldn't encourage you to do that, but hey, you do your own thing. This business is attached to the actual real estate. And this is what I think is so cool. Not only are you able to get higher cash flow, but you're also able to build something that you could be sold later on. So think about this, my business, AirVenture Hosting Company, which is a corporate housing company. I can actually sell that to somebody that wants to buy it in the future. And I can also sell my real estate. The two things are separate, but they're still connected. That's what I call a modern investor. And people aren't looking at traditional long-term leases anymore. They're looking at midterm rentals, short-term rentals, residential care facilities, sober living, renting by the room, co-living. There's so many different ways to make money in real estate today. This is what's super cool, is that I get to be at the forefront of what people are doing and how they're actually creating these additional ways of revenue. But this is what is so crazy about this, that most people that list properties on platforms just let their properties sit there on Airbnb or Furnished Finder or Zillow, and they just wait for somebody to come, click on their property and say, I want to stay there. That is absolutely not the game if you're in 2025 and you're actually looking to build a business that could be around in the next 5 or even 10 years. I'm going to give you an example. Ruben, who's a gentleman that was on stage at the summit, one of my students, he actually has built a literal 7-figure business in less than a year when he didn't even realize that he could even do this thing to begin with. This guy was stuck in a certain position, but he started realizing that he can now connect with other people in other markets and actually start to build a Rolodex of relocation specialists, corporate housing providers, all these different types of folks without even owning property. And he's been literally able to build a massive business in literally less than a year. But what does it actually take? It takes a lot of drive, ambition, wanting to be around the right people, and actually doing the thing that you say you're gonna do. This isn't about being a landlord anymore. This is actually realizing that you're actually in a sales business. And that's where Shelby Sapp, who actually comes into the picture. She was a speaker at the MidTerm Rental Summit this year in 2025. She's 24, young and ambitious, and she brought what I believe was one of the better presentations at this summit because it was completely different than what most people think. And also she's young, but she just understands sales and everything that revolves around midterm rentals or furnished housing or corporate housing. You have to sell your company to somebody else. You got to find the solution to a problem they have, and you have to be able to solve that problem. And a lot of it is through sales. And most people don't actually realize this. In fact, most people that I talk to will tell me, I don't know how to do sales. It's not for me. This is not the best move. I don't know if I can sell something to somebody. Well, then this isn't the business for you, because literally what you're trying to do is sell your services and your opportunities to other people. And that's exactly what the B2B market is. It's business to business sales. And most people don't actually know that. So they get into this game without understanding sales completely. And you have to. You don't have to know it all the way, but you have to be able to put your foot in the door and actually start to think that you can sell something. If you have a product, which is a property, it's got to be in good condition. What does that property actually offer to somebody else? You got to think about that from a service standpoint. One of the other highlights from the MidTerm Rental Summit was that Furnished Finder actually showed some really cool information. I want to share it with you guys right now. Corporate relocations are up 130% this year, and literally year over year. There are 4 giant tenant segments in the midterm rental space, and Furnished Finder has been able to uncover those for us general public folks to be able to see who's actually staying at properties. This is what the 4 are: relocation, business travelers, academia, and healthcare. They represent 90% of literally all the demand. So if you're thinking about like, who do I need to go after? Those are literally the 4 industries that you can build a massive business on. And you don't need to have a bunch of different contacts. You can have one. And sometimes people don't realize you're like literally one connection away from building a 6 or 7 figure business. One of the other things that I think is pretty freaking crazy, actually it's a little bit wild, is that tenants are planning 36 days in advance now. And 32% are actually bringing freaking pets. And I don't mean like iguanas, or actually they might be bringing iguanas. One time I had a feminator. What? Ferret. That's what I was actually looking for. I had somebody that actually brought up ferret. So yes, just make sure that you are allowing pets, because literally 1 in 4 people are bringing a pet, and sometimes even more than that. And if you don't allow pets on your property, probably a big reason why your property is not getting booked right now. So just remember that. Do you want to know the secret to scaling your midterm rental business? Delegating the hard work to software. No need for a property manager. That'll take all of your profits and poorly manage your property. And you definitely don't want to be winging the guest management side. The most successful investors I know use software to automate their rental business. So they can passively manage guests and make sure that they're remaining compliant. Plus, software can actually help you automate, especially your bookkeeping and tax prep, so that you can make the most out of your rental property's tax benefits. By doing this, I was actually able to save over $350,000 on my 2024 tax return. I partner with TurboTenant because their platform is actually so easy to use, and I truly love that it's an all-in-one platform. You can check them out at turbotenant.com/Jesse. One of the biggest things that I actually realized at being at this summit this year, and I actually realize it every year, but this year it really freaking hit me hard, is that everybody at these midterm rental summits, there was 500 people there, and literally everybody knows each other. Like, we're all connected with each other. We're all actually working alongside one another. And I think that's something magnificent to talk about. People don't realize, like, in the short-term rental industry, everybody's kind of competing with each other in a lot of ways. And for me, when I realize and I look at the midterm rental space, everybody's sharing referrals with one another. And I think one of the cool things about this is that every time that each of us talks to one of these folks that work in these companies, either whether it's a temporary housing company, a relocation company, a corporate company, we can use each other's properties like actual tangible properties, because these real estate relocation companies and these temporary housing companies, they want to see volume. So if you're in a group or in my community, like I have a community that has a large amount of people in there, there's literally over 1,000 properties of the people that are in our community right now. If I talk to a relocation company, I can say, hey, I'm part of a network that has over 1,000 properties. That alone right there is going to get so much attention from whoever I'm speaking to, because I actually do have that and I am part of a community like that. And the more that I realize how this midterm rental space is, it's very much connected on each other. It's not one of those businesses that is reliant on you solely. You can actually work with other people. And I think this is one of the craziest things that I watch people that were actually at the summit get deals done while they were actually sitting there learning about midterm rentals and what's happening in the future. Like, that to me is freaking wild, and it's super awesome to watch people do that. One of the other things that I loved about this summit this year is that this isn't one of these like crazy boring conferences where it's super corporate and it feels like you're in this like crappy freaking hologram image of like a person that's just like, you know, corporate pictures and like pamphlets. It's just like somebody in a suit and they're just like passing something off to somebody else, and it's just like, it is not that. We had a drummer on stage, we had an MC that was pretty freaking dope, we had really good music that was playing, the energy was really energetic in there. Did not feel like a traditional real estate conference, and honestly that's what I've always been wanting to do. I'm wanting to connect with people in a different way. I think being in environments that allow people to have energy, which I think is, we all have energy, and it's so empowering, and I learn more when I'm in an environment that actually is conducive to that. And I think what's cool about this and what I've been able to build is that your vibe attracts your tribe. That's exactly how I am. And when I see these people out in the space, there might have been one or two that were like, man, that music's way too loud. And that's okay, that's not for them. It's not for everybody. But for a lot of people there, they absolutely loved being in that energy. We talked about things that are changing fast in the market, especially with Airbnb's new updates that most people don't even know about yet. And also we talked about the geographic hotspots that are shifting, tenant behavior, which is freaking evolving, and I had no idea. I just talked about it a minute ago. And if you're not ahead of the curve, you're actually getting steamrolled by other people that actually know way more about this space than you do. There's actually a whole list of cities that Furnished Finder was able to supply us with, and it was pretty freaking awesome to watch. There is just so many cities right now that are booming, and they're small random cities that are all over the US. We know the big ones like Seattle, Los Angeles, San Diego, San Francisco. That's a lot of West Coast stuff. There's also a lot of stuff on the East Coast, New York, Chicago. There's Florida. There's a lot of markets that are doing very well. But the craziest thing that I watched and I looked at is that a lot of these places that are booming right now, which means they don't actually have enough supply for the demand. These markets that actually are kind of random, and it's because they're building gigawatt stations, or they're building new AI buildings, or they're building Amazon warehouses or super Walmarts, like these big giant kind of freaking massive warehouses that take city blocks up. And what's crazy about this is that every single one of these markets that I'm going to talk about, I'm going to show you a graph of these markets right now that are all over the US. Every single one of these is a hub for one of these new technology based companies that are coming into these random states in the US to build these massive factories. And there's just not enough housing to meet the demand of the workers that are going to be there building this site from the ground up. And keep in mind, after people build this, they got to live somewhere. And this is one of the cool things about being in the tech space, is that a lot of those folks in the tech space are actual digital nomads, and they stay in random properties. They don't actually own a home. They just go from one place like Austin to San Francisco to Chicago to New York, Florida. And what's crazy about there's over 30 million digital nomads across the US, and this was exacerbated because of COVID. We know that happened, and people are being told to go back to work, but there's still a lot of companies companies that are doing hybrid remote work where people can live in Nashville and fly to San Francisco once. This is something that is still absolutely happening right now. In fact, Airbnb rolled out their hybrid plan. It's exactly what I just talked about right now. People can live anywhere in the US, but they just need to report to San Francisco twice a month, which is pretty freaking wild. And that's pretty awesome. I think that's a great way for people to work. I'm not a big come to the office kind of guy, although I would love to have that, but I do think that happy employees are remote. And I think remote work is kind of like the new gold rush. I love being able to work in my own space, have my own time, and kind of do my own things, and obviously produce, which is I think is most important. But anyway, I was talking about demand a minute ago, and some of the biggest demand right now in the entire US, top 10 markets with the most demand. I'm actually going to read them off to you and maybe even share this screen here with you guys. Seattle, Portland, San Francisco, Los Angeles, San Diego. I just talked about those a minute ago. Denver, Austin, Texas, Chicago, Boston, and New York. That's pretty freaking awesome to know that these are the top 10 markets with the most demand, and just pretty freaking wild. And also, I want to talk about this. Stargate. This is what I was talking about a minute ago. Stargate's first data center is underway in Texas. And this is pretty freaking awesome because Donald Trump announced that Stargate, a venture between OpenAI, Oracle, and SoftBank, at a White House press conference in January this month. Business Insider reported that Oracle and tenant of 2 data centers buildings under construction in Cusco's data center in Abilene, Texas. So that right there, that market in Abilene, if you don't have property there, like go look. There's going to be some massive opportunity. This is a $1.1 billion investment in building this from the ground up. And these are the kinds of things right now that are happening with AI growing as fast as it is, that there's just going to be a massive amount of these data centers that are literally falling all across the US. One of the other things that I talked about is, and I've talked about this already on this channel, is CRS is changing. They've adapted to Airbnb. CRS, the temporary housing companies, now has access to literally all of Airbnb's properties. And I believe that we're actually in an age now where the temporary housing space is going to get a lot more difficult to grow in. And I believe that relationships are the new currency. And what I mean by that is I'd rather have a relationship with a person that works for one of these temporary housing companies I'm able to build. And I don't necessarily need to make a bunch of money from them, from actually like doing the deals with them, but I want to actually own that relationship. I want to be able to keep that relationship, because in the future, when Airbnb and ALE and all these other companies start to actually build a hub for people to, these corporate companies to go and grab from their database with minimal fees, which I believe is going to happen. We're already seeing this now with Airbnb shifting into what I call the 8th inning. They've completely adapted to basically the Craigslist of service-based businesses like barbers and masseuses and all that other stuff. And I think now we're actually seeing that shift where the midterm rental space isn't really a household name yet, but I do believe in the next 3 to 5 years, a lot more people are going to continue to know about midterm rentals and temporary housing in general, corporate housing, furnished rentals, whatever you want to call it, that those folks were actually ahead of the game tremendously right now. So just imagine Airbnb 2007, you start to get into that early on. That's actually what I feel we're in right now for those that are operating, especially at a higher level like what I teach. Those folks are actually learning at such an advantage. They're going to be learning so much more and already picking this information up, because as this market starts to get saturated, which isn't happening yet, there are certain markets that have saturation. Yes, of course, just like anything, but as more saturation comes in, those people that are savvy, intentional, they're looking at actually how to build a real business attached to their actual tangible real estate, like I talked about earlier. Those are the folks that are going to be winning in 2025, 2026, and beyond, as more people start to realize, and as midterm rentals actually become an asset class, just like short-term rentals and apartments and all those other things. So look, if you're actually serious about building a midterm rental business on actually what's happening right now in this business, if you didn't get a chance to make it to the summit, you can go watch all these videos of every single speaker that was out there talking about how to build a business, how to sell, how to sub to creative finance with Ziona McIntyre, how to raise private capital. Jeff from Furnish Finder talks about specific data that I think you guys really need to know. I talk about the next revolution of what's actually happening in the midterm rental space and how to stay ahead of the game, which it's stuff that I talk about. This was way bigger and a larger detail. Just the market insights alone are literally worth the price of admission. But if you want to see how people are actually building multi-million-dollar businesses step by step, you're absolutely going to want to buy this video. So I'm going to leave a link down below. I hope you guys can check it out. For everybody that showed up to this summit, you guys are freaking awesome. I think it's so amazing to watch people who want to build stuff for themselves, that want to live in a different way, that are creating the opportunities for themselves, and most importantly, getting in these groups together where everybody's learning at the same speed, or some people are ahead, some are behind. But the coolest thing is watching people become these modern investors who are looking at real estate in a totally different way. So I urge you guys, if you haven't had a chance yet, or if you didn't go to this summit, pick up the recording. It's going to be down below. I'm going to have some more videos coming up, but I'm super stoked you guys are here. Forward thinkers, modern investors, that's the way to do it. We will see you guys in the next one.